Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Maurica Manyan and Jesse Porter. First, I'll look at the background of this case, including the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Maurica Alex Manyan was born on February 16, 1997, and was raised in Beltsville, Maryland. This is just north of Washington, D.C. As an adult, Maurica worked as a special police officer in the D.C. Library Public Safety System. She had one son, who she lived with in Indian Head, Maryland, which is just south of D.C. On August 4, 2022, Maurica made her way to the Anacostia Neighborhood Library on Good Hope Road, southeast in Washington, D.C. She was there, along with 3 other special police officers, to receive training on how to use a baton and handcuffs. A 58-year-old man named Jesse Porter had been hired as a private contractor by the library special police to conduct the training. He was a retired lieutenant who had served for 33 years with the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. He owned his own company called Porter Consulting and Expert Tactical Training. Jesse had an employee named Byron who assisted him with the training. He was a current police officer with the Metropolitan Police. A D.C. Public Library supervisory officer was also on site. His name was Anthony. The training session started at 8 a.m. on the lower floor of the library. The 4 trainees watched a PowerPoint presentation. During the training, Jesse Porter had a Glock 26 9mm pistol in a holster on his right hip. During the interactive portion of the training, the trainees put on body armor and started the physical component. They practiced baton techniques on a large sandbag before moving to handcuffing techniques. When the training was over, the trainees removed their body armor and other training equipment and completed paperwork. At this point, the decision was made to get a photograph of the trainees with the instructors. As they were preparing for the photograph, Maurica could be seen adjusting her hair. Allegedly, Jesse witnessed this and referred to Maurica as Rihanna, presumably as a way of making fun of her for being interested in her appearance. The trainees posed in a line together with one trainer on each end as Anthony prepared to take the picture. Byron was standing all the way to the left of the line, Jesse was standing all the way to the right, and Maurica was the second person from the left, so she was standing just to the right of Byron. At this point, Maurica realized that she had her mask on. She removed it from her face, turned to the right, and appeared to attempt to put it in her right pocket. She said something like, she wasn't ready. One of her fellow trainees jokingly said, she's never ready. At this point, Jesse stepped out of the line, walked forward a few steps, and said, here we go again. Using his right hand, he retrieved his Glock 26 pistol from the holster on his hip, turned to his left, aimed the pistol at Maurica, and fired one time. The bullet struck Maurica in the chest, and she fell to the floor, crying in agony. Immediately after the shooting, the remaining people in the room scattered, perhaps wondering if Jesse was going to shoot them next. Like, what was this guy doing? Why did he just pull out his gun and shoot a trainee? Jesse appeared to be distraught. He moved around frantically and tried to help Maurica. He said, I thought I had my training gun. Why did I do this? Is she okay? The answer to his question was no. 25-year-old Maurica Manyan died not long after being shot. At 3:32 p.m., which was right after the shooting, the police were notified. Jesse told them that he was taking a picture and joking around when he removed his firearm from his holster and then heard it discharge. In May 2023, 9 months after Jesse killed Maurica, he was indicted for second-degree murder while armed, possession of a firearm during a crime of violence, and unlawful discharge of a firearm. On August 25, 2023, just over a year after the killing, Jesse Porter pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter while armed and unlawful discharge of a firearm. He was facing a minimum of 3 years in prison and a maximum of 7. Ultimately, the judge sentenced Jesse to 3 years, saying, quote, I think it is the punishment appropriate for what the evidence shows was a tragic mistake, unquote. Now moving to my analysis. Many people, including some of Maurica's family members, were very upset by the sentence that Jesse received. They felt as though he committed second-degree murder and deserved to be in prison much longer than 3 years. Usually, the government pursues murder charges when one person shoots another with no justification. But in this case, they offered Jesse a good plea deal. Did they do this because he was once a law enforcement officer or because it was warranted by the evidence? In Washington, D.C., second-degree murder is when, with malice aforethought, one person kills another. Malice aforethought can be met by any of these 4 conditions: intending to kill another, intending to inflict great bodily injury, possessing reckless indifference to an unjustifiably high risk of human life, or intending to commit a felony which results in a homicide. This brings me to the question, was Jesse Porter guilty of second-degree murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. There is no question that Jesse aimed his pistol at Maurica and fired one time, killing her. There was no justification for this. Maurica was not a threat. He just killed her out of the blue. Prior to the shooting, Jesse appeared to be somewhat aggravated with Maurica. For example, he criticized Maurica because she was reading too slowly from a PowerPoint presentation. He told Anthony that the next time he should bring a white helmet for Maurica. Later, Maurica provided what Jesse believed to be an incorrect answer to a question. Jesse pointed an orange training pistol at her and said, "Bang, bang, wrong answer," as he pretended to shoot her. Training pistol or not, this was a bad idea. This lesson was not about firearms. Jesse had no reason to do this. Right before the shooting, Jesse appeared to be frustrated that Maurica delayed the photograph by removing her mask. He proclaimed, "Here we go again." This supports the theory that Jesse impulsively shot and killed Maurica because he was upset with her. The heart of Jesse's defense was that he thought he was holding an orange training pistol, but that still doesn't explain why he pulled the trigger. It was Jesse's responsibility to be aware of what type of pistol was in his holster and to verify what type of pistol he had in his hand prior to pulling the trigger. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Jesse had no reason to intentionally kill Maurica. One could argue that he was reckless, which is still enough for second-degree murder, but there was no intent. For example, right after the shooting, he indicated that he had been joking around, and Jesse did appear to be genuinely upset after the shooting. He did not look like a man who killed out of anger. It's possible that Jesse truly did believe that the training pistol was in his holster. Earlier, he had pointed that pistol at Maurica and pretended to shoot her. Maybe he was simply doing the same thing, except this time he was holding his Glock 26. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Jesse Porter was guilty of second-degree murder? No, I believe he was guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The problem I have with the outcome of this case isn't the conviction, it's the sentence. I believe 7 years was warranted in this case, not 3 years. Here's why I believe this. Sometimes police officers mistakenly discharge a real firearm when they intended to fire something else, like a taser. These types of cases often result in a manslaughter conviction, not a murder conviction. For example, in 2021, a police officer in Minnesota named Kim Potter shot and killed a man who was resisting arrest. She was convicted of manslaughter and received a sentence of 2 years. Jesse's case is similar. However, I believe his sentence should have been the maximum of 7 years because there is a key difference in the circumstances. Kim Potter was dealing with somebody who was resisting arrest. She was in a stressful and potentially life-threatening situation. She had the right to retrieve and fire her taser. That level of force was justified. Unfortunately, she mistakenly retrieved and fired her pistol instead. In the case of Jesse Porter, he had no justification for pulling anything out of his holster. Not an actual firearm, not a training pistol, nothing at all. He created the danger completely on his own. He wasn't responding to a threat, and he did not pull the pistol as part of a training exercise. There is no excuse for his behavior. Furthermore, Jesse Porter held himself out as an expert trainer. One would think that he would have been more vigilant than a typical officer, not less. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Jesse Porter was unprofessional, did not have respect for firearms, and liked to joke around. There's nothing wrong with having a sense of humor, but pointing a training pistol at a person and pretending to shoot it is not funny. Jesse started a bad habit. He did something with the training pistol that was completely unnecessary and increased the likelihood that if he accidentally pulled a real pistol, he would point it at a person and pull the trigger. When the group was getting ready for the photograph, Maurica caused a slight delay. In an effort to build on the earlier theme of mockery, implying that Maurica was somehow a troublemaker, dim-witted, or vain, Jesse jumped out of line, retrieved his pistol, pointed it at Maurica, and pulled the trigger. He probably did believe the training pistol was still in his holster. His intent was simply to jokingly call out Maurica for her behavior, not to shoot her. Unfortunately, Jesse ended up killing her. Again, he had formed a bad habit, one that Maurica paid for with her life. Those are my thoughts on the case of Maurica Manyan and Jesse Porter. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.